think one of the big frustrations is if we are successful in other areas of life, why isn't that translating into our love lives in the way that we expect? I know I spent 25 years in corporate America myself and had some fairly high-level positions, and I feel like I had a great life, and I'm like, why is it not working in my love life? Why can't I figure this out? But like you said, it's not so black and white. It's not so clear sometimes as to, what's getting in the way or what's stopping us. And I like how you described when we're hanging on to something like a time frame or control with those white knuckles, how that sometimes makes it's like we're not open to receive when we've got those tightly gripped fists, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you see, Bex, in terms of, I know you've touched on a couple of things already, but what are some of the biggest challenges or struggles that you observe or see with your clients or with these kinds of women that consider themselves to be ambitious or driven, successful in other areas?
Yeah, sure. There's several big themes that come up. One of them that just pops right into my head and my heart is nobody's good enough. Nobody's good enough. That, and it's really interesting because when I start working with a client, it's only a matter of weeks or just several months before they begin to see an up-leveling of the quality of men who enter their orbit. Yet still, no one's good enough. So there's this immediate sorting, immediate dismissal, because, they'll get on the phone with somebody and they didn't like their voice, or maybe they make it to a first date and he had a weird idiosyncrasy with his eating patterns, or he was super particular about what he ordered, or, but even more so than like dismissing a man for the way he looks or his height, which are all very superficial. And I think we all know that we can't just judge our beloved on that. But even these second layer dismissals that are happening when, we go into judgment. I think as busy boss ladies, as entrepreneurs, as high performing corporate women, we are trained to be critical. We're trained to be super discerning. We're trained to be able to make decisions quickly, and again, this serves us so well in the professional space. But again, when it comes to matters of the heart and interpersonal relationships, especially in the times that we're living in today, where social media and politics have grossly polarized us. It's like if you have one stance on a political issue, then, oh my God, then dismiss immediately, versus leaning in and getting curious and actually getting behind the thought process of this other magnificent human being, which is an entire universe of thought, of emotion, of, and so there's this just coming back to one of the big themes that I see is this early dismissal for not really taking into account that this is a complete and whole human being with their own reality, their own sense of purposes, values, drives. And that comes back to us wanting to find somebody who's exactly like us versus, looking for somebody who complements us or who has a lot of elements that are very similar, but then can bring us new perspectives. So when we dismiss somebody just so quickly, then it just pushes us further and further out from the lasting love that we truly desire.
Yeah, that is huge. And I want to explore this a little bit. I just had a flashback as you were speaking, Bex, to being at a singles party. This is years ago. This is probably like 15 years ago. And I can remember there were a lot of people there, and it was in a house, and you could hardly move. It was like wall-to-wall bodies. But I literally had the sense that people were sizing each other up and down, and in a matter of like 3 seconds, deciding whether or not they wanted to engage or talk to anyone there. It was just kind of a meat market kind of vibe at this particular gathering. And I I feel like I got a little caught up in it myself. I was thinking, he's too short, or, whatever. The criteria was coming into my mind as well as other people. And then something interesting happened. I did kind of get cornered at this party by this guy, and not in a creepy way. We were just kind of stuck there because there were so many people. It was hard to move around. And we ended up having this wonderful conversation. But he was not someone I would have stopped to really talk to if it hadn't been for us kind of getting cornered together. And he ended up being just this great guy that I ended up dating for a while. And it just occurred to me that it was so interesting how I would have totally missed that experience, which was very rewarding, if that hadn't have happened at that particular party. I would have passed him by. So what you're talking about, I just had that flashback, really makes a lot of sense. So, but I know I want to play a little other side of this a little bit, Bex, and see what you have to say about this. I know there are ladies out there saying, well, yeah, but I don't want to settle, and I do have my standards and my criteria, and I know what I want, and I don't want to waste my time. These things we hear all the time. So how do women balance this? I mean, in my case, I got cornered, so it's going that way. But if I hadn't gotten cornered, I would have never known or met this guy and had a great chance to get to know him. So how do we balance all of that stuff that goes on in our minds and all of that criteria that we think we have to have, or else we'll be settling or lowering our standards?
Yeah, that is such a great question, because we know what we want. We want it yesterday.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. And absolutely. I'm of the camp that you can have what you want, that, and even better than your human mortal imagination can conjure. I believe that it's a co-creation with spirit, and that, what your heart's desire can absolutely be amplified and delivered. And so I would never want anybody to settle. So how do we get over that? It's a great question. The thing that comes to mind for me is that love attraction is a journey. Love attraction is not only a journey towards outrageous, lasting love, your beloved, your life partner, but love attraction is a journey of loving yourself and like deepening the relationship that we have with ourselves. So I think the balance is recognizing that there's something in it for me as well, for you ladies, along the way. I have a teacher that, she says that, in between the gap of where we are now and where we want to be is the process of who we are becoming. So the person that you are iterating into in order to meet your beloved, and not that you have to change who you are, but the growth, the self-awareness, the understanding, the loving kindness, all of these things are available to us on this journey. So if we start to look at it as a journey, as a process, instead of being so connected with our results, which is having our guy, this is the other thing that comes up for busy boss ladies, is that we're so results oriented. And the problem with that is that every single day you don't hit your mark, you don't meet your man, right? We're setting ourselves up for failure, so that you're a failure every single day that you haven't met your man. But if we pull the lens back and we have faith and trust, and I understand that this is also a leap for many, especially if you've been at it for a long time. But if we have faith and trust and know that there is somebody out there dreaming us up right now, and if we can just kind of release the timeline, again, way easier said than done. But then it becomes, again, like, what is in it for me? Who am I becoming? What have I learned about myself today? We start to see each man that we encounter as a bright, beautiful blessing on our path that is rich with information about who we are. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be like an awesome, extraordinary experience. It could be a guy who pisses you off, But what's triggered in you and what rises from that experience is new information and new doorways of growth, so that by the time you do attract the one that you're meant to spend your life with, then maybe that trigger has been tamed a little bit, or you have more understanding of where that trigger is coming from. So that then with your beloved, you have new possibilities, new options to choose from as far as your thinking or your behavior. You know, it really is a growth process. And again, if we can throw away the timeline, because I think that that's one of those things that there's that white knuckle grip again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think about relationships as like energy flow, you know, and if I think of like a garden hose and the way the energy, the way that water moves through the garden hose, if you pick up the garden hose and you fold it in half, you're creating a kink in the hose, and therefore you're breaking the flow of energy. And I think that this is one of the things that timelines do, and our super detailed list of he's got to be 6'2", and he's got to have salt and pepper hair, and he's got to have crystalline blue eyes. They can't be navy blue eyes. They have to be, you know, this is just kinking the energy that is the giving and the receiving of love attraction. So I think I went off on a tangent, but ditching the timelines, allowing it to be a process, and allowing it to be a growth journey of yourself, I think are some of the ways that we can still be on the journey, but not feeling like we have to settle, and not feeling like we have to entertain every man that enters our orbit. Certainly I'm not suggesting that. But yeah, it's definitely a journey. And there's some, like, I'm just even like breathing the feeling that I want to gift your audience is like this, this relaxation, this, you know, and this settling into that deep inner knowing. That was a lot.
There is a lot there. And one thing that really stands out for me that I just want to piggyback on is finding joy in the journey and not being so attached to a certain outcome that you don't enjoy the process along the way. So often in the work that we do, Bex, the holy grail is meeting and attracting the right guy. However, you know, I think that what happens sometimes by being so hyper-focused on that, we lose the opportunity to really find that joy along the journey and really embracing life. My husband and I got married at 43 for the first time. My husband and I have been married 12 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And my husband was 38 when we got married. He's a little younger than I am, but both of us spent a long time as single people. And we've often talked about how, while we can remember sometimes the angst or the frustration that we felt in going through a lot of different dating relationships that for one reason or another didn't seem to work out, for me it always felt like I was trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And I just thought, you know, what is up with this? But in retrospect, and again, these things are easier in retrospect, but in retrospect, my husband and I can say, we can remember feeling all that, the angst, the frustration, the disappointment, the heartbreak, and also, you know, some fun, positive dating experiences. But we both have said all of those things really led us to a point where we were really ready to recognize and receive each other. Mm-hmm. Like that was an essential part of both of our journeys for us to be ready for each other. Had we not had a lot of those experiences, we may not have been ready to recognize and receive each other, and to recognize what a gift it is in our lives to have found each other.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, what you were talking about in terms of growth and this journey and enjoying it and embracing it, it's easier said than done, but there's so much to be said for that.
And there's something also that I want to jump in on, as you mentioned joy. I mean, oh gosh, talk about a magnetic way of being. Mm-hmm. You know, and joy is something that I really try to bring into the work that I do with my clients, because, you know, one of the other things that came up as you were sharing, Michelle, is that, you know, you and your husband, by the time that you had gotten to each other, you were able to recognize like what you wanted. You were able to recognize each other in that moment. And this is so vital. And what I'm hearing is that you were able to show up for that first encounter as if your heart had never been broken before, as if you were open and receptive to love. And this is one of the things that is possibly one of the hardest things, especially with women who've been attracting love for a long time or haven't had the results in love that they've wanted for a long period of time. There's this weight on our heart. And I really do believe that accessing our joy is the thing that gets us through. I mean, I almost didn't go out on my first date with the man who's my husband because I was just eye rolling, and like I call eye roll energy the doorway to transformation, but like just eye rolling about going out on another online date and just like all the barfy feelings. And I recognized that I was bringing that to the table and I didn't want to. And I literally went out in my neighborhood to dance for an hour to shift my energy, to access my joy so that I could show up to this date as if my heart had never been broken, as if I wasn't bringing 4 checked bags of baggage to the table, and because I invested that time. And it doesn't have to be an hour, but because I invested that time in shifting my energy, accessing my joy, that is what I brought to that date. And that is who I showed up as, this joyful, charismatic, whatever it was that he fell in love with. But, and I think that this is a really important thing for the ladies in the audience to hear, is that our joy and our place of levity and our like wildishness and skillful girlishness. I mean, all of these things, they fall under the umbrella of feminine energy, but these are the things that are radiant and magnetic to the man who's to be your beloved.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you shared that. Thank you. Because I think this also taps into another challenge for ambitious, driven, successful women. And that is, we can sometimes, and I fall into this category, we can sometimes be so focused and so serious that we forget to have fun. We forget to be in our joy. We forget to pursue our passions. We get very, very single focused and very outcome focused and want control. And for me, I have to tell you, Bex, I intentionally schedule fun and joy into my schedule. Like I put it in my calendar, and that might sound a little weird, but if I don't, then I can get so focused on just all of the day-to-day things that I'm doing in my work, in my business, with my family, whatever, that I forget to really just be in my joy. So one question I like to put out there to my clients is, when is the last time you did something just for the fun of it, for no other reason than it's going to be fun? It's going to be a blast. It's going to make you laugh. It's going to make you smile.
Yeah, absolutely. I am of the same camp. And again, it's one of those things where I fall into the gravitational black hole of not having fun. And then I realize, oh gosh. So, and it's a practice that I'm in of scheduling time off and afternoons off, and, to take walks in nature, to go get my nails done, or, and not be so like self-punishing about the time away, in business. And, and in love, I attracted my man when I was creating a choreographed dance for 50 hula hoopers. Talk about fun. I was just steeped in fun. And, and I absolutely agree with you. For the women, I really see the women who struggle the most with this myopic view of like everybody, when they're out in public, every guy, are you my guy? Are you my guy? Are you my guy? And it's just, again, I keep coming back to that white knuckle grip, because it's holding the vision so tightly, that there's no space for God, source, universe to work its magic on us. And we need to have fun. We are fun, playful, just inherently as human beings. And this is part of the process.
Mm-hmm. So a client recently asked me a question, and I have my thoughts about it, but I really want to hear yours. I really want to tap into your wisdom on this. So this kind of coordinates with what you just said, tapping into spirit and the universe and this divine timing and that sort of thing. So this client is a very spiritual client, and yet she's also very successful in her professional life and is very intentional about that. And she said to me, what is the right balance of me, like, doing online dating or getting out there socially and creating opportunity for myself, and then just trusting in the universe and the divine timing, and that love is just going to show up when it's meant to. Because how we hear these things like, love will show up when you least expect it, or it will show up when you're not looking for it. So she was asking me this question, and I would love to hear your answer to that.
That is a great question. I think it's a little individual. I think it's unique for each individual. But at the same time, our energy flows where our attention goes. I'm definitely not of the camp where, we need to be sending so many messages a day and we need to be going on so many dates a week. I think that, again, that's really stoking the fires of our results orientation. Mm-hmm. And I think that the coaching that I give my clients around similar questions is that we need to stay, if not in action, then we need to stay in the energy of love. So what that means is that, I have a client who just moved. She just did an cross-city move. And for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, it is the thing that has absolutely dominated her life. Yet she is very committed and she's very driven about attracting her man. But when she thought about engaging with her online platforms in this time of moving, it caused stress, palpable stress, physical sensations, emotional stress. And that is not a strong magnetic pull for outrageous lasting love. Right. So there has to be some ebb and flow. There has to be some forgiveness around the times that you're not feeling it, because the last thing that I would inspire or want somebody to do is be sending messages out of duty because they have to meet a daily quota. That to me energetically will attract somebody very analytical, somebody, I don't know who that would attract, if anything at all. So, yet at the same time, there is a balance to it. We don't want to just completely drop out for months at a time because things got hard, or because we went out on a date, a couple of bad dates, or got stood up, or, that's when I get really concerned, is that if we're, again, this black and white thinking, if we're on full force and doing all the things, and then after a couple of not so great experiences, there's a flip the table, walk out of the restaurant kind of energy. And then it's months or years before we dip our toes back in. So there really is a balance. And I think that, 2 weeks of ebbing is fine, as in my client's case. And then her homework became something different. We just amplified her engagement offline, because in packing up and moving and doing all of the thing, running all the errands, and she's out and about more so in her daily life than she would be previously. So then the stretch, the homework becomes, how much eye contact can you create? How many smiles can you evoke in other human beings, not just men, not just attractive men? I think this is the other thing about that early dismissal, is we're conditional about the love that we're putting out there. So I'm feeling myself going off on a couple of different tangents, but to come back to your question, is there a specific formula? I honestly don't subscribe to a specific formula, because again, we are all so individual and unique, and what is going to attract someone to me is going to be different than what attracts someone to you, Michelle. Mm-hmm. And I think that it really comes down to paying attention to your own heart rhythms, your own emotional cycle. And when you do feel like flipping the table and walking out of the restaurant for good, or for however long, that might be the time that you actually reach out to a support buddy. And that's somebody who's going to continuously keep you committed and inspired, not somebody who's commiserating with you about how awful men are or whatever story that you have. So there's that ebb and flow of paying attention to your emotions in the moment, paying attention to your calendar and like realistically what you have. And I have another client who has an annual event, and for 4 months she was hands off on her dating life because it just completely monopolized her time. Mm-hmm. So in that case, then the conversation becomes, okay, I get that you have to do it this way now. And in the future, where's your man going to fit into this time period? So how can we create a both and conversation where you get to have time for dating, or you get to have time for the relationship once he arrives, and you also get to have this magnificent event, touching hundreds of people's lives, So again, no finite answer other than it's individual for everyone. But being in the energy of love, even if you can't be on your online game, that's okay. Because a lot of us want to meet organically offline anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I think there's a lot of wisdom there. I followed a mentor for a while, and she had this saying that was committed but not attached. And what that meant was you're committed to your dream, you're committed to your desire, you're committed to holding the space for that, and you're committed to allowing for the creation of that and being receptive to it, but not attached to any one specific outcome or any specific timing or any specific way that it should happen. And that I have found to be really helpful for me in my own life. And I think it applies here, even though she was really talking about it more in a business context. And I think you hit on something too in talking about your clients that were in different phases or going through different things in their lives. I think we do have to be in tune with and honor our feminine energy. If you have only enough energy to come home and collapse on the couch, that's not the time to force yourself to go out in the evening. That's probably the time to give yourself some really needed rest and self-care. Yes. And typically, if we push ourselves in moments like that, or in moments of high stress or high demand, we're not energetically going to show up with that joy or that lightness of energy or that fun or inviting aura about ourselves anyway. And so that having been said, Bex, again, I like the way you said it, where you said staying in the energy of love, because my experience has been that even clients or women that I've talked to who said, we met unexpectedly or we in a serendipitous way, they were still, what I've found is they were still in situations, in environments where they could meet someone. In other words, they may not have gone to that particular event or gone to that particular place with this intention of, I'm going to meet someone here, but they were in an environment, they were in an energy and in a space where they could be open and receptive to that. So I agree with you. I think it varies from individual to individual, but I think it's this beautiful combination of trusting in the divine, in timing, in spirit, and also I like this idea of being committed, but not attached.
I love that too. Yeah, I think Danielle Laporte speaks about that in an interview that I saw on YouTube recently, and she was saying something about like wanting it with your whole heart, with every fiber of your being, and at the same time being okay, if it doesn't show up, which I believe it will show up, but B, when it shows up, and like exactly what you're saying, just being unattached. And that is truly like holding the vision with an open hand. It's really powerful when we're able to access that. It's easier said than done, though, I know.
It is. It is easier said than done, especially when that desire is so strong and so deep that it's almost painful to not have it fulfilled yet. I know that because I've been there. I've been there where it hurt so much that I didn't have that I would curl up in on a ball on the bed and sob because it was so painful. And so that is very real. But I think approaching these things energetically in some of the ways that we've been talking about can really make a difference and can really be helpful. And remembering that joy along the journey is so essential, because
Yeah.
this is your life. It's not a dress rehearsal. So you want to have fun. You want to enjoy it and love your life right now. And then that man just becomes the icing on the cake.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, for anyone who is struggling with that holding it with an open hand and wanting it with all of your heart, but being unattached, being committed, but unattached. I mean, one of the things that might be helpful is to look back on your life and recognize the different moments where you've been in similar situations, wanting something so deeply, so badly, and how that thing came to be in your life, and how that was a process, and how it didn't happen overnight, and how there were clues all along the way that led you to the place of that realization of that thing becoming your reality. And I think that the more that we lean on the evidence that we have in our own life, that we have created our reality, we have created that which we desire into physical form, I think that it helps us to anchor the faith in the present day for the journey that we're on now.
Mm-hmm. So Bex, I want to let you have the last word real quick before we wrap up. And we want to thank you for being here with us and for sharing your wisdom. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you, ladies in the audience, for doing this work. You are on the journey, and it is happening. It's happening now. Believe that.
Thank you so much, Bex. As Bex says, you're on the journey. It's happening right now. Take care, and bye-bye for now.